Within hours of Dr. Zixthala's initial report reaching the Galactic Health Council, every major scientific institution in the Union had received emergency communication protocols. The news spread through the scientific community like wildfire through dry grass, and soon Ambassador Sarah Chen found herself facing not one curious biologist, but an entire panel of the galaxy's most distinguished xenobiologists, physicists, and evolutionary specialists. The emergency session convened in the Union's largest amphitheater on Nexus Station, with representatives from 47 different species in attendance. Sarah sat in the center of the circular chamber, feeling somewhat overwhelmed by the sea of eyes, sensors, and attention focused on her. Some beings floated, others stood on multiple legs, and a few existed as pure energy contained within crystalline matrices. The diversity was breathtaking, but their unanimous fascination with her was unnerving. Dr. Veltar, the Union's chief evolutionary biologist and a member of the gas giant dwelling Aryan species, spoke first through his translation device. His ethereal form shimmered with nervous energy as he consulted the data streaming through his consciousness. Ambassador Chen, we've reviewed Dr. Zixthala's findings multiple times. The readings appear accurate, but we need to understand more about your species' capabilities. Would you mind participating in some practical demonstrations? Sarah glanced around the chamber, noting the protective barriers that had been erected around the observation areas. I'd be happy to help, but I should mention that I'm not exactly what you'd call athletic by human standards. I work behind a desk most days. This statement caused a ripple of translated whispers throughout the assembly. Dr. Kethmore, a towering insectoid being from the high-gravity world of Xerion Prime, stepped forward. His homeworld boasted the highest gravity of any Union member at 4.7 standard units, and his species was renowned for their physical prowess. If I may, Ambassador, I would like to conduct a simple strength comparison. My people are considered among the strongest in the Union. Would you be willing to participate in what your species might call an arm wrestling match? Sarah looked uncertain. I really don't want to embarrass anyone. Are you sure this is necessary? The request was met with enthusiastic approval from the assembly. A testing apparatus was quickly brought forward, designed to measure the precise force exerted by each participant. Dr. Kethmore positioned himself across from Sarah, his massive chitinous arm extending toward her. His limb was easily 3 times the thickness of her own, ending in a hand that could have wrapped around her entire head. Please, don't hold back on my account, Sarah said politely. I understand this is important scientific data. The moment their hands met and the signal was given, the testing apparatus immediately maxed out its readings. Sarah, applying what she considered minimal effort, had instantly overcome Kethmore's full strength. The massive insectoid's arm hit the table with enough force to crack the reinforced surface, and his compound eyes went wide with shock. Impossible, he whispered. I was using my full strength. How did you? You weren't even straining. Sarah looked genuinely concerned. Are you all right? I barely put any effort into that. Did I hurt you? Dr. Zixthala quickly replaced the broken testing apparatus with a military-grade force measurement device designed for testing the Union's most powerful construction mechs. Ambassador, could you try again? This time, please use what you would consider moderate effort. The second test produced readings that sent the assembled scientists into a frenzy of excited discussion. Sarah had generated force measurements that exceeded the maximum output of many Starship engines. When asked to demonstrate what she considered significant effort, she declined, stating that she was worried about damaging the station's infrastructure. Dr. Veltar materialized his gaseous form into a more solid configuration, his excitement barely contained. Ambassador, these readings suggest that your species possesses physical capabilities that exceed our most optimistic projections. But we need to understand the full scope. Could you tell us about human athletic records? Your strongest individuals? Sarah thought for a moment. Well, our powerlifters can deadlift around 500 kilograms, sometimes more. Our sprinters can run 100 meters in under 10 seconds. Marathon runners can maintain pace for over 42 kilometers. But those are our elite athletes, not average people like me. The translation devices struggled to convey the stunned silence that followed. Finally, Dr. Kethmore managed to speak. Ambassador, did you say 500 kilograms? As in lifting 500 kilograms off the ground? Our record is actually a bit higher than that, Sarah replied. And that's just raw strength. When you factor in leverage and technique, humans can move much heavier objects. Construction workers, movers, people in physical jobs, they handle heavy loads all day long. A new voice entered the discussion as Dr. Quilina, the union's expert on biomechanics, activated her hover platform. Her serpentine form was adapted for a low-gravity ocean world, and the concept of lifting heavy objects was nearly incomprehensible to her species. Ambassador Chen, you mentioned construction workers. Could you describe typical human construction activities? Sarah's description of building skyscrapers, moving multi-ton steel beams, and operating heavy machinery without mechanical assistance sent the assembly into chaos. Species that required exoskeletons to lift their own body weight listened in amazement as she casually described humans carrying 50-kilogram bags of concrete up flights of stairs. And this is considered normal manual labor? Dr. Quilina asked. Pretty standard, Sarah confirmed, though we do use machines for the really heavy stuff. Cranes, bulldozers, that sort of thing. Humans aren't machines after all. Dr. Zixathala pulled up a holographic comparison chart showing the lifting capacities of various union species. The strongest among them, after years of training and with mechanical assistance, could manage perhaps 50 kilograms. Sarah's casual mention of human construction, workers routinely handling loads 10 times that weight, was causing some scientists to question their fundamental understanding of biological limitations. There's something else we need to address, Dr. Veltar announced. Ambassador, Dr. Zixathala's scans indicate that your bone density is approximately 15 times greater than the galactic average. This suggests that your species has adapted not just to high gravity, but to survive impacts and stresses that would be lethal to other life forms. Have humans ever tested their durability limits? Sarah looked uncomfortable. Well, we do have contact sports. Boxing, football, rugby, mixed martial arts. People get hurt sometimes, but usually they recover pretty quickly. The concept of voluntary combat sports for entertainment left many of the peaceful union species speechless. Dr. Kethmore, despite his warrior species background, seemed particularly disturbed. You engage in ritual combat for enjoyment? He asked. Some people do, Sarah replied. It requires training and safety equipment, of course. Though even then, accidents happen. Broken bones heal, concussions recover, cuts and bruises are pretty minor in the long run. The scientists exchanged glances that transcended species barriers. They were beginning to realize that humanity's application for union membership wasn't just complicated. It was potentially revolutionary. They weren't dealing with just another intelligent species seeking peaceful cooperation. They had encountered a race of beings that were, by galactic standards, essentially indestructible. Dr. Zixathala adjusted her bioscanner for the third time, her 4 slender arms working in perfect coordination as she prepared for what should have been a routine examination. The Galactic Health Council had assigned her to process the newest species seeking membership in the Interstellar Union, and she had seen hundreds of different life forms cross her laboratory threshold over the past decade, from the silicon-based crystalline collective to the energy beings of the photon realm. Nothing should have surprised her anymore. The human specimen sat patiently on the examination platform, looking remarkably calm for a member of a species that had only recently achieved faster-than-light travel. Ambassador Sarah Chen, as she had introduced herself, appeared to be middle-aged by human standards, with dark hair pulled back in what humans called a ponytail, and wearing the simple blue uniform of Earth's diplomatic corps. This won't take long, Zixathala assured her. Activating the deep tissue scanner. Just some basic biological readings to ensure your species is compatible with standard station environments and to update our medical databases. Sarah nodded, her lips curving upward in that peculiar human expression called a smile. Take all the time you need, Doctor. I know how important these procedures are for everyone's safety. The scanner hummed to life, its crystalline array beginning to map the human's cellular structure. Zixathala had read the preliminary reports from the exploration team that had made first contact with humanity 6 months ago. Bipedal carbon-based life forms, oxygen breathers, standard gravity preferences, nothing particularly unusual. Their technology was primitive but showed promise, and their diplomatic overtures had been surprisingly sophisticated for such a young spacefaring civilization. The first readings began flowing across her holographic display, and Zixathala's primary eyes widened in surprise. She recalibrated the scanner, certain there had been an error. The readings remained the same. Her secondary eyes, usually kept closed during routine work, snapped open to focus on the display with greater intensity. "Is everything all right, Doctor?" Sarah asked, noticing the alien's sudden stillness. "I'm sure it's just a calibration issue," Zixthala replied, though her voice carried a note of uncertainty that her universal translator couldn't quite hide. She ran the scanner again, this time using the deep penetration setting typically reserved for dense cord species like the rock-dwelling granite lords. The results were identical, impossible but identical. According to her instruments, the human cellular density was off the charts. Not just high, impossibly, incomprehensibly dense. The scanner was reading cellular structures packed together with the efficiency that defied everything she knew about biological engineering. Most species had evolved with cellular structures optimized for their homeworld's conditions. But this human's biology suggested adaptation to gravitational forces that should have crushed any planet flat. "Ambassador Chen," Zixthala said carefully, "I need to ask you some questions about your homeworld. The preliminary reports indicate Earth has a gravity of approximately 9.8 meters per second squared. Is that correct?" "Yes, that's right," Sarah confirmed. "Standard Earth gravity. Why do you ask?" Zixthala's mandibles clicked nervously, a sign of deep thought among her species. "And this is considered normal for your people? You don't use artificial gravity enhancement or genetic modification to survive in such conditions?" Sarah's smile faltered slightly. "I'm sorry, I don't understand. Earth's gravity is just normal for us. We evolved there. Why would we need enhancement?" The biologist set down her scanner and activated a holographic display, showing the comparative gravity measurements of various Union worlds. Earth's reading appeared as a red bar that stretched far beyond the others. Even the high-gravity worlds of the Union, inhabited by species known for their incredible physical strength, showed gravity readings barely half of Earth's. "Ambassador," Zixthala said slowly, "your homeworld's gravitational force is more than double that of any inhabited world in the Union. The Cruathon Empire, known throughout the galaxy for their warriors, evolved on a world with only 4.2 standard gravity units. The heavy worlders of Titan Station consider 6.1 units to be extremely challenging. Your Earth measures 9.8 units. Sarah stared at the display, her expression shifting from confusion to concern. "But that's just normal for us. I mean, sure, some people are stronger than others, but we all manage just fine." "Are you saying other species couldn't survive on Earth?" "Survive?" Zixthala's voice rose an octave. "Ambassador, most Union species would be crushed flat by your planet's gravity within moments. The strongest among us might last a few minutes before their skeletal structures collapsed." "And you're telling me that your entire species evolved under these conditions naturally?" The implications began racing through the biologist's mind. If humans had evolved under such extreme gravitational conditions, their bone density, muscle fiber composition, and cardiovascular systems would have developed far beyond anything previously encountered in the galaxy. She had to run more tests. "I'm going to need to conduct some additional scans," she said, trying to keep her voice steady. "Would you be willing to participate in some physical assessments?" Sarah shrugged, a gesture that Zixthala now realized involved muscle groups that shouldn't exist in most species. "Of course. Whatever you need." Over the next hour, Zixthala ran every test in her considerable arsenal. Bone density scans revealed skeletal structures that were essentially organic metal. Muscle fiber analysis showed a weave pattern so tight and efficient that it should have been impossible for the organism to move. Cardiovascular readings indicated a heart that pumped with the force of an industrial compressor. With each test, the results became more unbelievable. This wasn't just a high-gravity adaptation. This was evolution creating a biological war machine. The human sitting calmly on her examination table, chatting pleasantly about Earth's weather patterns and her favorite foods, was built like a living tank. "Ambassador Chen," Zixthala finally said, her voice barely above a whisper, "I need to ask you something, and please understand that I mean no offense. When your people engage in physical labor or exercise, do you ever break things? Accidentally, I mean." Sarah laughed, and even that sound seemed to carry more force than it should. "Oh, all the time. We have to be pretty careful around delicate equipment. My daughter just started her first job at a research lab, and they had to give her special training on handling sensitive instruments. It's pretty common. Why?" Zixthala saved her readings and began composing what would be the most shocking biological report in Union history. She had a feeling that humanity's application for membership was about to become very, very complicated. News of the human assessment spread throughout Union space with unprecedented speed. Within days, the Galactic Council found itself in emergency session as reports flooded in from scientific institutions, military analysts, and xenobiological research centers across dozens of worlds. Ambassador Sarah Chen, still unaware of the magnitude of concern her simple medical examination had generated, continued her diplomatic duties while a galaxy-wide debate raged about humanity's place in the cosmic community. Admiral Thex Ara of the Union Defense Fleet stood before the assembled council, her tentacled form rigid with military precision as she presented her analysis. The holographic display behind her showed comparative data that made even the most seasoned counselors shift uncomfortably in their various forms of seating. "Honorable counselors," she began, her voice carrying the weight of 30 years of military experience. "The implications of the human biological assessment extend far beyond simple scientific curiosity. We are potentially dealing with a species that represents a fundamental shift in the galactic balance of power." Counselor Vex Dan of the Pacifist Coalition raised a crystalline appendage in objection. "Admiral, surely you're overstating the situation. Yes, humans appear to be remarkably durable, but they're a young species with primitive technology. Their ships barely achieve Class 2 FTL speeds." Admiral Thexara's display shifted to show tactical projections. "Counselor, their technology may be primitive, but consider this. Every soldier in their military is essentially a walking tank by our standards. Their infantry, armed with nothing more than basic projectile weapons, could potentially overwhelm our most advanced defensive positions through sheer physical capability alone." The chamber erupted in overlapping translations as representatives from dozens of species voiced their concerns. The Admiral waited for the commotion to subside before continuing. "I've consulted with military historians from every major Union fleet. Never in recorded galactic history have we encountered a species with this combination of intelligence and physical capability. The closest comparison would be the ancient warrior clans of the Sigma sector. But even they required extensive cybernetic enhancement to achieve a fraction of human baseline capabilities. Meanwhile, in a secure research facility on Nexus Station, Dr. Zixathala was conducting the most important tests of her career. Sarah Chen had volunteered for extended evaluation, and each new discovery left the scientific team more amazed than the last. Today's experiments focused on human endurance and recovery capabilities. "Ambassador," Dr. Zixathala said, monitoring readings from a dozen different sensors, "we'd like you to run on this exercise platform. Please maintain what you would consider a comfortable pace for as long as you feel able." Sarah stepped onto the treadmill-like device, adjusting her speed to what felt like a gentle jog. To the assembled scientists, her pace was remarkable. Faster than most Union species could achieve in short sprints, yet she showed no signs of strain. Her breathing remained steady, her heart rate elevated but stable, and her cellular efficiency readings suggested she could maintain this pace indefinitely. After 2 hours of continuous running, Dr. Quill Ina approached the platform. "Ambassador, our readings suggest you could continue at this pace for many more hours. Is this normal for your species?" Sarah slowed to a stop, barely breathing heavily. "This is pretty comfortable, yes. Human marathon runners regularly maintain faster paces than this for over 2 hours. Our ultra-marathon athletes can go for 12 hours or more, sometimes days with minimal rest." The revelation that humans could literally run for days sent shockwaves through the research team. Dr. Veltar's gaseous form swirled with agitation as he processed the implications. "Ambassador, your species' endurance capabilities appear to exceed those of any known life form. How do you explain this from an evolutionary perspective?" Sarah toweled off, considering the question. "Well, humans evolved as persistence hunters. Our ancestors would literally chase prey animals until they collapsed from exhaustion. We're not the fastest species on Earth, but we can outlast almost anything over long distances." Dr. Kethmore, still recovering from his earlier arm wrestling defeat, stepped forward. "You hunted by running your prey to death?" "It's called persistence hunting," Sarah explained. "Humans would track animals for hours or even days, maintaining steady pursuit until the prey became too exhausted to continue. It's one of our most effective hunting strategies even today." The implications hit the military observers immediately. Captain Zurich of Union Intelligence, monitoring from the observation deck, activated his secure communicator. Command, this is Captain Zurich. The humans aren't just physically superior. They're evolutionary pursuit predators. Their entire biology is designed for relentless, sustained pursuit. Recommend immediate strategic reassessment of humanity's threat level. Back in the council chambers, Admiral Thexara was presenting her most disturbing findings. The human military maintains detailed records of something they call combat endurance. Their soldiers routinely operate for 72-hour periods with minimal rest, carrying equipment loads that would crush most Union species, across terrain that would be considered impassable. She activated a new display showing human military training footage. Counselors watched in stunned silence as human soldiers carried heavy packs over obstacle courses, swam through rough water, and climbed vertical surfaces using only their hands and feet. This footage shows what humans consider basic training for their youngest military recruits, the Admiral explained. Every human soldier undergoes conditioning that would be considered superhuman by our standards. Counselor Murthak of the Technical Alliance voiced the question many were thinking. Admiral, given these capabilities, what are your recommendations regarding humanity's membership application? Admiral Thexara's tentacles writhed with uncertainty. Counselors, this represents an unprecedented decision. Humanity clearly meets the intelligence and technological requirements for membership. They've demonstrated peaceful intentions and diplomatic sophistication. However, their biological capabilities present risks we've never had to consider. She paused, letting the weight of her next words settle. A single human could potentially overpower our standard security forces. A small team of human tourists could constitute an invasion force. We're talking about a species where their elderly and children possess greater physical capabilities than our elite soldiers. The chamber fell silent as the full scope of the situation became clear. They weren't just evaluating a membership application. They were determining how to coexist with a species that could accidentally represent an existential threat to galactic civilization. Dr. Zixthala's voice crackled over the chamber's communication system. Counselors, we have additional findings. The human ambassador has agreed to demonstrate what she calls self-defense techniques. I believe you should witness this personally. As the council members prepared to adjourn for an emergency observation session, none could shake the feeling that they were about to witness something that would forever change their understanding of what it meant to be truly powerful in a universe full of intelligent life. The emergency demonstration took place in the station's largest cargo bay, hastily converted into an observation arena. Every member of the Galactic Council attended, along with military advisors, scientific observers, and security personnel from dozens of species. The atmosphere was tense with anticipation and barely concealed fear as Ambassador Sarah Chen entered the makeshift testing area. Dr. Zixthala had spent the morning setting up various testing scenarios, each designed to assess human defensive capabilities without putting the station's population at risk. The first test involved what humans would consider basic martial arts. Movements Sarah assured them she had learned in a weekend self-defense class years ago and rarely practiced. Before we begin, Sarah addressed the assembled crowd, I want to emphasize that I'm not trained in combat. I work in diplomacy. What I'm about to show you is just basic self-defense that most human civilians know. Admiral Thexara exchanged concerned glances with her fellow military observers. If this was basic civilian knowledge, what were human soldiers capable of? Dr. Zixthala activated a combat training drone, a device designed to simulate hostile encounters for Union security forces. The drone moved at speeds considered challenging for trained Union Marines, wielding non-lethal energy weapons that could stun most species. Sarah watched the drone approach with casual interest. As it reached striking distance and fired its stun weapon, she simply stepped aside, the movement so fluid and precise that several observers initially missed it entirely. Before the drone could recalibrate, Sarah's hand shot out, grasping the machine's primary sensor array. With what appeared to be minimal effort, she crushed the hardened military-grade components like fragile glass. The drone, its guidance systems destroyed, crashed to the floor with a resounding clang that echoed through the silent cargo bay. That's basically what they taught us in the class, Sarah explained apologetically. Avoid the attack, disable the threat, though this drone was moving a bit slower than I expected. Captain Zurich activated his tactical recorder, his mandibles clicking nervously. Ambassador, you said the drone was moving slowly. What would you consider fast? Sarah considered the question. Well, in human martial arts, we practice against multiple opponents moving at full speed. Professional fighters can react to punches that travel at about 15 meters per second. But that's trained professionals. Most people can handle maybe half that speed. The military observers quickly calculated the implications. The fastest Union combat units moved at approximately 3 meters per second during assault operations. Humans considered this laughably slow. Dr. Veltar materialized into his most solid form, his concern overriding his usual ethereal preference. Ambassador, could you demonstrate what you would do if faced with multiple attackers? 3 more combat. Drones were activated, programmed to attack simultaneously from different angles. Sarah watched them approach with the same calm expression she had worn during diplomatic negotiations. As they closed within striking distance, she moved. What followed challenged every observer's understanding of biological possibility. Sarah flowed between the drones like water, her movements precise and economical. Within seconds, all 3 machines lay in pieces on the cargo bay floor, their components scattered like broken toys. Multiple attackers require controlling distance and using their momentum against them, Sarah explained, stepping carefully around the debris. The key is not fighting all of them at once, but making sure you only face one at a time. Counselor Vexdan's crystalline form pulsed with distress. Ambassador, those drones are military-grade combat units. Each one is capable of subduing a squad of Union soldiers. Sarah looked genuinely surprised. Really? They seemed pretty basic. The reaction times were slow, and they didn't adapt to changing tactics at all. Are your military units typically that predictable? The question sent chills through every military observer present. Admiral Thexara realized they were facing a species that found their most advanced combat systems to be inadequately challenging for weekend hobbyists. Dr. Zixthala activated the final test, a scenario designed for Union Special Forces. A heavily armored combat mech standing 3 meters tall and weighing nearly 2 tons powered up in the far corner of the cargo bay. Its weapon systems were disabled, but its physical capabilities remained formidable. Ambassador, Dr. Zixthala said hesitantly, this unit is designed to simulate our most challenging combat scenarios. Please don't feel obligated to engage if you're uncomfortable. Sarah studied the massive machine as it approached with thunderous steps. It's quite impressive, very solid construction, but it's too top-heavy, and those joints look like vulnerability points. Before anyone could respond, Sarah darted forward, moving faster than the mech's targeting systems could track. She leaped, actually leaped, to reach the machine's torso, her fingers finding purchase on its armored surface. Using leverage and precise force application, she twisted one of the mech's arm joints beyond its design tolerances. The sound of rending metal filled the cargo bay as the million-credit military unit toppled to the ground. Its pilot safely ejected, but his pride thoroughly demolished. Sorry about the damage, Sarah said, landing gracefully beside the fallen mech. I tried to be gentle, but those joints weren't as robust as they looked. The silence that followed was profound. Finally, Dr. Kethmore found his voice. Ambassador, you destroyed our most advanced combat unit with your bare hands? Sarah looked embarrassed. I really didn't mean to break it. On Earth, we have wrestling and grappling sports that teach similar techniques. It's mostly about understanding leverage and structural weak points. Admiral Thexara stepped forward, her military bearing barely concealing her awe. Ambassador Chen, I need to ask you a direct question. What would happen if humanity decided to use these capabilities aggressively? The question hung in the air like a toxic cloud. Sarah's expression grew serious as she considered the implications. Admiral, I hope that never happens. Humans have a saying, with great power comes great responsibility. We've spent thousands of years learning to control our aggressive impulses, developing laws, ethics, and diplomatic solutions to conflicts. We seek membership in the Union precisely because we believe in peaceful cooperation between species. She paused, looking around at the assembled representatives. But I understand your concern. Yes, humans are physically capable. We evolved in a challenging environment that required strength, endurance, and quick reflexes. We're also intelligent enough to recognize that might doesn't make right, and wise enough to know that every problem can't be solved with force. Counselor Murthak activated his translation matrix. Ambassador, how can we be certain that all humans share your peaceful philosophy? Sarah's smile was sad but understanding. The same way you ensure peace among any species, Counselor. Through trust, verification, mutual benefit, and the understanding that cooperation serves everyone's interests better than conflict. Humans aren't perfect. We have our conflicts and disagreements, but we've learned that building together achieves more than tearing down. As the demonstration concluded and the cleanup began, the gathered representatives faced an unprecedented decision. They had witnessed capabilities that redefined their understanding of biological possibility, demonstrated by a being who insisted she was just an average civilian diplomat. The question that haunted every observer was simple yet terrifying. If this was what an ordinary human could do, what were their soldiers, their athletes, their specialists capable of accomplishing? The emergency session of the Galactic Council convened 12 hours after the demonstration, but the debate had been raging non-stop through secure channels across Union space. Representatives who had never agreed on anything found themselves united in their bewilderment, while military commanders reassessed every strategic doctrine they had ever learned. Counselor Prime Ethmara, the ancient leader whose species had founded the Union 3,000 years ago, called for order in the Great Chamber. Her crystalline form pulsed with the slow, measured rhythm that indicated deep contemplation among her people. Fellow counselors, she began, we face a decision unlike any in Union history. Never before have we encountered a species that combines such physical capability with apparent peaceful intent. Our debates have raised questions that go to the very heart of what we are as a galactic community. Admiral Thexara stood to present the military perspective. Counselors, after extensive analysis, the Defense Committee has reached some troubling conclusions. Based on Ambassador Chen's demonstration, we estimate that a single human could potentially neutralize an entire Union security detachment. A squad of human soldiers could theoretically conquer most Union member worlds with minimal equipment. The chamber buzzed with nervous energy as translations carried the Admiral's words to dozens of species. Dr. Zixthala, invited to present her scientific findings, activated her holographic displays. The biological data supports Admiral Thexara's assessment, she reported. Human muscle efficiency is approximately 12 times greater than the galactic average. Their bone density suggests they could survive impacts that would liquefy most Union species. Most remarkably, their nervous system response times indicate they experience time itself differently than we do. She highlighted a particularly striking graph. During combat scenarios, humans appear to process information and react to threats at speeds we previously thought impossible for biological entities. What we perceive as rapid movement, they experience as having abundant time to analyze and respond. Counselor Vexdown raised a shimmering appendage. Dr. Zixthala, are you suggesting that humans experience time dilation during stress? Not exactly, the biologist replied. Rather, their neural processing accelerates under stress conditions. It's an evolutionary adaptation for survival. But it means that in dangerous situations, they become even more formidable than baseline testing suggests. Meanwhile, in her quarters aboard the diplomatic vessel Harmony's Voice, Ambassador Sarah Chen was having her own crisis of understanding. The human expedition's military attaché, Colonel James Morrison, had arrived on Nexus Station that morning, and Sarah was briefing him on the situation. So let me get this straight, Colonel Morrison said, reviewing the translated reports on his tablet. They think we're some kind of super soldiers because you showed them basic self-defense? Sarah nodded, her expression troubled. Jim, I barely know any martial arts. That weekend course I took was 15 years ago. But when I demonstrated the techniques, they acted like I had performed miracles. Colonel Morrison, a veteran of Earth's Special Forces, considered the implications. At 55, he was considered past his prime by human military standards. But he maintained the fitness regimen that had made him legendary in special operations circles. Sarah, what exactly did you show them? As she described the demonstration, Colonel Morrison's expression grew increasingly concerned. Christ, Sarah. You disabled military hardware with basic civilian techniques. No wonder they're worried. But it wasn't that impressive, Sarah protested. Any reasonably fit person could have done the same thing. Those drones were slow and the mech was obviously top-heavy. Colonel Morrison stood and walked to the viewport, gazing out at the massive Nexus station. Sarah, I think we fundamentally misunderstood something about galactic civilization. We assumed that other species would have capabilities roughly comparable to ours, just with different technologies. But what if we're wrong? What if we're actually the anomaly? Back in the council chambers, the debate was reaching a crescendo. Species representatives were dividing into factions, those who saw humanity as a dire threat, those who viewed them as potential protectors, and those who remained uncertain. Councillor Duran of the Merchant Guild voiced a pragmatic concern. The economic implications alone are staggering. Human workers could revolutionize industrial capacity across the Union. A single human could perform the work of dozens of our people. How do we compete with that? Competition is exactly the wrong framework, countered Councillor Yilandra of the Research Collective. Imagine the scientific advances possible with human participation. Their enhanced capabilities could allow experiments and explorations we've never dared attempt. The philosophical implications weren't lost on the Council either. Councillor Zenkara of the Ethical Council raised perhaps the most important question. If humans are indeed as physically superior as these tests suggest, what does that mean for the fundamental equality principles upon which the Union was founded? Admiral Thexara requested permission to share classified intelligence. Councillors, our deep space monitors have been observing human space for the past 6 months. What we've discovered is perhaps more concerning than their biological capabilities. She activated a strategic display showing human-controlled space. Humans have achieved interstellar civilization in roughly the same time frame it typically takes species to develop basic metallurgy. Their technological advancement rate is unprecedented. The display showed Earth's defensive installations, shipyards, and colonial expansions. More troubling still, their military doctrine appears to be based on the assumption that any conflict will involve opponents with capabilities similar to their own. Their standard defensive measures would be considered impregnable fortifications by Union standards. Dr. Veltar materialized near the central podium. Admiral, what are you implying? I'm suggesting that humans didn't just evolve superior physical capabilities. They evolved assuming they would face opponents with similar capabilities. Their entire civilization is built around competing with beings as formidable as themselves. The implications sent shockwaves through the assembly. If humans had developed their technology, tactics, and civilization while assuming all opponents would be equally dangerous, what did that say about their potential military capabilities? Councillor Prime Ethamara called for a brief recess as private consultations erupted across the chamber. As representatives huddled with their advisors, one question dominated every conversation. How do you peacefully coexist with a species that could accidentally represent an existential threat? Dr. Zixthala approached Admiral Thexara during the recess. Admiral, there's something else. Ambassador Chen mentioned that she's not particularly athletic by human standards. She described herself as middle-aged and out of shape. If her capabilities represent baseline human civilian performance, the Admiral's tentacles coiled tightly. Then we haven't seen anything yet. As the recess ended and the council reconvened, every representative understood that their decision would either usher in a new golden age of galactic cooperation or potentially end the Union as they knew it. The humans waiting in diplomatic quarters had no idea that their simple application for membership had sparked the greatest crisis in galactic history. The final debate was about to begin, and the stakes couldn't be higher. As the council prepared for their final deliberations, an unexpected development changed everything. Ambassador Sarah Chen requested permission to address the assembly directly, accompanied by Colonel Morrison and the rest of the human diplomatic mission. The council, desperate for any insight that might guide their historic decision, agreed to hear humanity's perspective. Sarah entered the great chamber flanked by 6 other humans: Colonel Morrison, Dr. Elena Vasquez, the mission's chief scientist, Engineer Marcus Thompson, Cultural Attaché Lisa Park, Trade Representative David Kim, and Communications Specialist Alex Rivera. The diverse group represented humanity's commitment to peaceful, multifaceted cooperation. As the humans took their positions in the center of the chamber, every sensor, scanner, and observation device focused on them with unprecedented intensity. The council members had seen Sarah's capabilities, but now they were analyzing an entire human team. Honorable counselors, Sarah began, I understand that our biological assessment has raised significant concerns about humanity's place in the galactic community. Before you make your decision, I believe you deserve to understand not just what humans are capable of, but who we are as a people. Dr. Zixthala discreetly activated her scanners, curious to compare the readings from multiple humans. What she discovered made her question everything she thought she understood about the species. Colonel Morrison's readings were off her instrument's scales entirely. His physical capabilities appeared to exceed Sarah's by orders of magnitude. But more intriguingly, Dr. Vasquez, who appeared physically smaller and more delicate, showed readings that suggested capabilities rivaling the Colonel's. Sarah continued her address. Council members, you've expressed concern about human physical capabilities. Yes, we evolved on a high-gravity world that demanded strength, endurance, and quick reflexes. But those same evolutionary pressures that made us physically capable also taught us the value of cooperation, community, and peaceful coexistence. She gestured to her companions. Each member of our mission represents billions of humans who share a common dream: to explore the galaxy not as conquerors, but as contributors to something greater than ourselves. Colonel Morrison stepped forward. Counselors, I've spent 30 years in Earth's military. I've seen the horrors that human strength can inflict when guided by hatred, fear, or greed. I've also seen that same strength used to protect the innocent, rescue the helpless, and build rather than destroy. The choice of how to use our capabilities defines us more than the capabilities themselves. Dr. Vasquez activated a holographic display showing human civilization. From a scientific perspective, our evolution on Earth created certain physical advantages. But it also fostered intellectual development, emotional intelligence, and social cooperation. Humans learned early that individual strength means nothing without community support. The display showed human cities, with their mixture of diverse populations working together. Our species includes individuals with vastly different physical capabilities, intellectual gifts, and cultural backgrounds. We've learned to value contribution over raw ability, cooperation over competition. Admiral Thexara interrupted with a crucial question. Dr. Vasquez, our scans suggest that your physical capabilities rival those of our strongest soldiers, yet you present yourself as a scientist. How do we reconcile this apparent contradiction? Dr. Vasquez smiled. Admiral, on Earth, physical capability and intellectual pursuit aren't mutually exclusive. Many of our greatest scientists, artists, and philosophers also excel at physical activities. We don't separate mind and body the way some species do. A strong body supports a strong mind, and intellectual challenges enhance physical performance. Engineer Thompson activated another display, showing human construction projects. Our engineering achievements reflect this integration. Humans regularly work in environments that would be lethal to most Union species: high radiation zones, extreme temperatures, crushing depths, and toxic atmospheres. We've learned to build not just with technology, but with our own capabilities as part of the engineering solution. The council members watched footage of humans working in space, underwater, and in other extreme environments with minimal life support equipment. What other species required massive technological solutions for, humans accomplished with basic protective gear and their natural adaptations. Cultural attaché Lisa Park addressed perhaps the most important concern. Counselors, you fear human aggression, and that fear isn't entirely unfounded. Our history includes conflicts, wars, and violence, but it also includes the evolution of ethics, law, and diplomacy specifically designed to channel our capabilities toward constructive ends. She showed historical progression from early human conflicts to modern international cooperation. We learned that our strength means nothing if we destroy what we're trying to protect. Our greatest achievements come not from individual prowess, but from millions of humans working together toward common goals. Trade Representative David Kim presented economic projections that challenged the Council's assumptions. Honored delegates, you've expressed concern about economic disruption from human workers, but considered the possibilities of cooperation rather than competition. Human physical capabilities could open new industries, enable unprecedented construction projects, and allow economic expansion that benefits all union members. His projections showed potential joint ventures. human workers partnering with Union technology, exploring previously inaccessible resources, and building infrastructure on a scale never before imagined. Communications specialist Alex Rivera addressed the final concern. Council members, you worry about humanity's military potential. Yes, humans are physically formidable, but we've also developed sophisticated concepts of proportional response, rules of engagement, and civilian protection. Our military doctrine emphasizes defense, deterrence, and the protection of innocents. The display showed human peacekeeping operations, disaster relief efforts, and search and rescue missions. When humans use force, it's typically to protect others, not to conquer or dominate. As the human presentation concluded, Sarah made her final appeal. Honorable counselors, we stand before you not as conquerors seeking new worlds to dominate, but as a young species hoping to learn from older, wiser civilizations. Yes, we are physically capable, but we are also intellectually curious, emotionally mature, and ethically committed to peaceful cooperation. She paused, looking around the chamber at the assembled representatives. We offer our capabilities in service of the Union's goals: exploration, scientific advancement, peaceful cooperation, and the betterment of all intelligent life. We seek membership not to change the Union into something reflecting human values, but to become part of something greater than humanity alone could achieve. Dr. Zix Thala stood to address a final question. Ambassador Chen, after observing your delegation, I must ask, are you truly representative of average human capabilities? Sarah exchanged glances with her companions. Dr. Zix Thala, we're professional diplomats, scientists, and specialists. We're probably in better physical condition than the average human civilian, but yes, we're representative of educated, motivated humans. We're not special forces soldiers, Olympic athletes, or enhanced individuals. We're ordinary people doing the jobs we love. The translation of ordinary people sent shockwaves through the assembly. If these were ordinary humans, what were their extraordinary individuals capable of? As the human delegation departed to allow the council's final deliberations, every representative understood that they weren't just deciding humanity's membership status. They were determining whether the galaxy was ready for a species that redefined the very concept of biological possibility, while maintaining philosophical commitment to peace, cooperation, and the greater good. The final vote would determine not just humanity's future, but the future of galactic civilization itself. The final council session stretched through 3 full cycles as representatives engaged in the most intense debate in Union history. Species that had been allies for millennia found themselves on opposite sides of fundamental questions about strength, security, and the nature of galactic civilization itself. Counselor Prime Ethamara presided over the heated discussions with the patience earned through 3,000 years of diplomatic experience. Her ancient wisdom was needed now more than ever as the Union faced its greatest challenge. The chair recognizes Counselor Vextan of the Pacifist Coalition, she announced. The crystalline being's form pulsed with agitation. Fellow counselors, we cannot ignore the fundamental threat that human capabilities represent to our peaceful way of life. For 3 millennia, the Union has maintained stability through mutual vulnerability. No single species possessed the ability to dominate others. Humans shatter that balance entirely. His words resonated through the translation matrices with urgency. What happens when human criminals exist? What about mental illness, political extremism, or simple accidents? A single unstable human could cause devastation across multiple worlds before anyone could stop them. Admiral Thexara supported this concern with tactical analysis. Counselor Vextan raises valid security issues. Our current law enforcement, military protocols, and emergency response systems are designed around predictable threat parameters. Humans operate outside those parameters entirely. But Dr. Zix Thala stood to present a different perspective. Counselors, my extended analysis reveals something remarkable about human psychology. Their extreme physical capabilities appear to correlate with enhanced social responsibility mechanisms. They've evolved internal controls proportional to their external abilities. She activated displays showing human social structures. Human children are taught from earliest ages about controlling their strength, being gentle with smaller creatures, and understanding consequences. Their legal systems include sophisticated concepts of proportional response and excessive force. They've developed ethics specifically because they recognize their own potential for harm. Counselor Yil Andra of the research collective added scientific support. The psychological profiles are fascinating. Humans show remarkable empathy development, apparently because their evolutionary environment required cooperation, despite individual power. They learned that community survival depended on individual restraint. Engineer Thompson had provided additional data during his presentation that was now being analyzed. Dr. Veltar materialized to share these findings. Counselors, human engineering philosophy reveals crucial insights. They design systems not for optimal efficiency, but for safe failure modes. Their technology includes multiple redundant safeguards because they assume operators will occasionally make mistakes with catastrophic potential. Trade. Representative Kim's economic projection sparked another heated debate. Counselor Duran argued, the economic disruption would be unprecedented. How can union workers compete with beings who can outperform our industrial equipment? But Counselor Murthak presented a revolutionary counter-argument. Perhaps competition is the wrong framework entirely. Human capabilities could enable economic expansion that benefits everyone. Instead of competing for existing markets, we could create entirely new industries based on previously impossible projects. The debate raged through the night cycle as representatives wrestled with implications that extended far beyond simple membership approval. They were confronting fundamental questions about the nature of strength, responsibility, and civilization itself. During a recess, an emergency communication arrived from the Union's border monitoring stations. Captain Zurich of Intelligence activated the priority channel in the council chamber. Counselors, we've received disturbing intelligence from the frontier sectors. The Devourers have resumed their expansion campaign, and our border defenses are proving inadequate. Multiple colonies have requested immediate evacuation assistance. The timing seemed impossibly coincidental. The Devourers, a machine intelligence that had plagued the galaxy's rim for centuries, chose this moment to escalate their aggression against Union space. Their automated war fleets had been probing defenses for months, but now they were launching full-scale assaults. Admiral Thexara reviewed the tactical reports with growing concern. Counselors, our standard defensive protocols are failing. The Devourers have adapted to counter our conventional strategies. We need solutions outside our normal operational parameters. The implication hung unspoken in the chamber. They needed capabilities like those humans possessed. As dawn broke over Nexus Station, Counselor Prime Ethmara called for the final vote. Fellow counselors, we have debated extensively. The question before us is not whether humans are formidable. That has been established beyond doubt. The question is whether we trust them to use their capabilities responsibly within our community. She paused, her ancient crystalline form reflecting the chamber's lights like captured starlight. I have lived through the rise and fall of civilizations, witnessed the birth of new species space age, and seen the Union grow from a handful of worlds to span half the galaxy. Never before have we faced a decision with such far-reaching consequences. The voting procedure began with traditional solemnity. Each species representative cast their decision through secure quantum channels, the results compiled by ancient AIs that had overseen Union democracy for millennia. In her quarters, Ambassador Sarah Chen waited with her delegation, unaware that their simple membership application had sparked the greatest crisis in galactic history. They had spent the morning reviewing their presentation, wondering if they had adequately conveyed humanity's peaceful intentions and responsible character. Do you think we said enough about our safeguards and oversight systems? Dr. Vasquez asked Colonel Morrison. The veteran soldier considered carefully. Elena, I think we said everything we could. If they're still afraid of us after learning about our values, our laws, and our commitment to cooperation, then maybe the Union isn't ready for human membership. Meanwhile, emergency reports continued flooding in from the frontier. The Devourers had accelerated their campaign, and Union forces were retreating on multiple fronts. The timing forced an uncomfortable question. Could the Union afford to reject potential allies when facing an existential threat? The final tally was completed just as Admiral Thexara received confirmation that 3 more colony worlds had fallen to the Devourer advance. She approached Counselor Prime Ethmara with the tactical reports as the voting results were prepared for announcement. Prime Counselor, the Admiral whispered urgently, The frontier situation has deteriorated beyond our worst projections. We may need to consider emergency measures. Ethamara's ancient wisdom carried the weight of cosmic perspective as she prepared to announce the decision that would determine the future of galactic civilization. The vote was closer than any in Union history, reflecting the magnitude of the choice before them. "Fellow counselors," she began, her voice carrying across the chamber with profound gravity, by a margin of 51% to 49%. "The Galactic Union votes to—" She paused, looking toward the chamber's viewing port where human ships waited in the distance, their crews unaware that they had accidentally become the most important people in the galaxy, to offer humanity full membership in the Galactic Union, with the provision that a joint oversight committee will monitor integration and develop protocols for species with exceptional capabilities. The chamber erupted in mixed reactions as the historic decision was announced. Some species celebrated the potential for unprecedented cooperation and expansion. Others worried about the fundamental changes ahead. But as emergency klaxons sounded and reports of devourer advances filled the communication channels, every representative understood that their decision would be tested sooner than anyone had expected. The Union had gained its most powerful members just as they faced their greatest threat. The age of human cooperation in galactic affairs was about to begin, and the timing couldn't have been more critical.